Welcome. We're excited to bring you a new mini-series called Literacy Now Together, a special collaboration between FULCRUM and Parents for Reading Justice.
Welcome, Ameer. Welcome, Deon. We appreciate your time. Ameer, when I first met you, we were at a conference, I think it was Black Literacy Matters, and you had just come back from talking to folks who were locked up in a penitentiary. And you were telling me that that's something that you regularly did. I mean, you're known in some circles as the prison coach. Why do you do that work? And tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I want to first say thank you guys for having me on the podcast. This work is dear to me because I realize that there is a psychology behind incarceration. And I teach this curriculum called the psychology of incarceration. And it deals with thoughts, actions, and behavior that are associated with self-imposed and state-imposed incarceration. I was in a penitentiary well before I entered physically. Before I got into a physical prison, I was in a mental prison first. I was already incarcerated because of my thinking, actions, and behavior. So what I try to do is I try to get men to understand that they've been in prison well before they enter the prison cell, and they can extricate themselves from prison well before they get out. And if they're waiting on someone to let them out of prison, their waiting is in vain, because you can be in prison and free and be out on the streets and be incarcerated. So those some of the things that I teach, and that's a whole curriculum that I teach. But I think it's important because on the reading front, if you cannot read when you leave prison, you have probably 85%, 90% chance that you're going to recidivate. So it's important that you learn to read, because if you can't read, you can't fill out the application. You're embarrassed, you're ashamed, and so that it weighs on you. So you'll take the easy way out, which is the street life. And I've seen men do it over and over and over and over again. So it's very important that one learns to read. One learns to have pro-social values, right? Love, faith, peace, forgiveness, and feel good about his or herself. How do you get out of distorted thinking once you've gone against your values? Those are some challenges, because we all go against our values sometimes. But the most important thing is, how do we rectify that? And you have to rectify that immediately. You cannot wait. And so those are the things I teach men, how to think, man. You need to know how to think. It's your thinking that's going to keep you living. It's your thinking that's going to keep you out of prison. So that's where I came up with that idea.
You learn that. I kept reading in this book, you are so emotionally mature. And I kept wondering, how did you flip that? How did you take control of your mind and begin doing those positive pro-social thoughts?
One of the things that impacted me tremendously, upon my incarceration, there was a white guy that I met who was an art thief. Very highly intelligent guy. He had stole $10 million worth of art, and he was across from the other cell from me. So he and I would speak frequently. But this guy got everything he wanted in jail. And he was a very articulate white man. And I saw that language and the words that he used got him a lot of things that it couldn't get other inmates. And so I start mimicking this guy. Good morning, warden. How are you? Good afternoon, warden. Good evening, warden. How you doing, warden? What's up?
Right.
And I realized that it was language that took you to the next level. And I became enthralled with this guy and enthralled with words, the power of words. And reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and saw that whole journey. I was facing 60 years at the time, and I was guilty. I had the cocaine. And I said to myself, if I get 60 years, I'm going to be the smartest guy in prison. I just wanted to learn, because I realized that was the new currency. Learning, education, man. That was your pathway. And my grandmother always preached that the only way that the Negro was going to get out of poverty was through education. But I was handcuffed and bound and incarcerated because I had dyslexia, and I realized that, well, come on, I'm not going to be able to make it because I can't read. So that was a self-imposed incarceration. There was a self-imposed limitation that I placed on myself with distorted thinking. Once I realized that, man, I became free the moment I started hanging out with this white guy. The moment I heard this man would tell me, Ameer, you guys got to change your language. You guys got to correct the way you speak. And man, the lights came on, and I just wanted something better. And to add to this, if I may, I recall vividly when I was going down this long, long road on my way to the penal system, Avoidance Correctional Facility. There was 30 men on the bus, 32 men on the bus. And on that journey, about, I would say, 6 or 7 blocks before we got to the prison, there were black men on both sides with switchblades, cutting grass. And I said, oh my God, I have put myself in slavery by my own volition. Now, my forefathers came here by force. They were forced into slavery. I had given the state free permission to incarcerate me. Boom, the lights came on. I said, oh God, I put myself in slavery. How do I get out of this? So then I got on the journey. I'm like, I have to learn to read. Reading got me to this place. Reading gonna keep me out of it.
Reading and also language development. So that's one of the things that we talk with some other guests. There are a couple of professors that we had on, and they were talking about how important it is to have students learn language, the finer points of language. It doesn't mean necessarily that you have to reject your culture at all. I think that's what some people struggle with. If I learn to enunciate my words, if I learn to master the language, am I rejecting my heritage? Am I rejecting the way my grandparents spoke? It's a real tension for some people, but you wrestled with that. It came out of it thinking, sounds like, I just want to be the best I can be, and that includes mastering this aspect of things over here.
Absolutely. What I would say to any young person who's toiling with that is the subculture of the Negro. Mm. That is not the culture of the Negro. Yeah. That is the subculture of the Negro. Mm-hmm. That's the subculture. So who we are as a people, once you begin to learn and read, right, and you realize down in the Black Wall Street, they had the Black Wall
Tulsa.
Street. These were highly educated Negroes. Yeah. I went to Tuskegee University, and back in the 1800s, the Negroes were scientists, engineers, lawyers. I said, oh my God, I didn't know Black people were this smart. Man, we've been smart. Yeah. That's who we are. We're not slaves. We don't come from that. So when you start realizing that a Black man did the first open heart surgery, it blows your mind. You start thinking, well, I thought Black people were running around naked in the jungle. That's lies.
Or Black people running around acting crazy on the streets.
Yeah, don't listen. That's a small percentage of the Negro. They show you ignorant Negroes who do not know who they are and don't know where they come from, and who have not read. They just got a bunch of money, right? They just have a bunch of money. So they paint athletes. We need to be athletes. We need to be basketball players. Man, if I had to live life all over again, I will tell God, please, whatever you do, this is what I will require. Just place me in the home of a 2-parent household. Mm. And both parents have a value and a hunger for learning. That I would never play basketball in my life. I would never play football in my life. I want to be educated. Yeah. That's power, not having some money dribbling a basketball.
Man, you and Deon, that reminds me of something that you wrote in your book. You know, I've heard you talk about there was a point when you were with the Detroit Lions and you were supposed to, come back in. You were like, no, I'm good. I'm moving my life in this other direction. Can you talk a little bit about when you have goals about what people think you should be doing? How does that differ from having your own goals about what you want to do?
So think about it. I done made it, right? I'm in this locker room with Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stanford, and I'm actually here. A dream that I never thought would come true, but with perseverance, I'm here. And the first thing I do, I open the playbook and it's an iPad, and I'm just scrolling. That fear of not knowing how to read jumped back into my soul. Like, reality check, Deon, you don't know how to read. That big dream of mine went right to a small seed, right? Me being here and not feeling like I'm there. Do that make sense? Like, actually being in my dream, yeah, trying to get my family out the ghetto, needing this money, right, but knowing that I'm not actually there mentally.
So let me ask you this. I can't imagine. I mean, I've never been in a professional locker room. I don't know, but I do know what it means to get caught up. I do know what it means to have goals, and then you just get, there's roadblocks in the way. So my question to you is, when you were at Central Michigan, right, the college years, those roadblocks were there too, but you managed to navigate that. What was the difference? How were you able to navigate it in college, but then in the pros, it was just too much?
I'm not about to sit here and act like college was a walk through the park, because it wasn't. I finally asked for help, right? And when I asked for help, it was more of, they don't know that I'm dyslexic. They don't know anything about this reading problem, but they guided me in a way, right? So it's family oriented in football in college, but everything I was going through, it was a struggle. So it was more of my grandma saying like, hey man, you can do this, you can be more. And me going internally to say, you know what? Before I go home, I'm at least say I gave it my all. So I'm gonna check out, I asked for help. I'm gonna make sure that I turn in my work. I'm gonna make sure I talk to my teachers. And I'm gonna be honest, man, it's like I'm doing everything everybody's telling me to do. Yeah. But I'm still feeling trapped. Mm. I feel like it's a lock on my brain.
Man, you a big dude. We met before. You a little bit more stout than the average cat. So, what if you weren't, your size? What if you weren't running a 4.4, 4.5, 40? What if you weren't 6'2"? What if you weren't playing tight end? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if you weren't those things physically, and you couldn't? Because most of our kids, that's not their reality. Most of our kids, they're too light to fight. Who looks out for those kids? Because it sounds to me like, hey, we're in Central Michigan. We're gonna make sure you get what you need, so you can at least contribute to what we're talking about, right?
It's with a prison mindset, bro. I'm not even lying to you. I'm just here to do my time. I'm not trying to make I'm not trying to make no friends. I'm not trying to get to open up to people, because I knew internally, truthfully, I knew I couldn't read. I had a low education. I couldn't speak clearly. So I had this aggressive mindset. I ain't messing with nobody. I'm here to get out the hood. I'm here to handle business so I can get my grandma, my mama, my daddy into a better environment. So I had just like a negative mindset due to the fact that I couldn't read, man. I couldn't read. That shut me down so much to being able to be open with the world, to accepting my blessings.
Mm. But when you did ask for help, Sharon Moore, and that's what a lot of dyslexic kids, once they figure out, or once people know that they have dyslexia, they're not stupid and they're not trying, because they thought that you were not really trying to understand the place. But when they realized that it was dyslexia and that it was not your intention or your motivation, I thought they tried to bring you in. And did they then help you with the plays? And
in college, they still didn't know about dyslexia. Nobody knew about dyslexia. Now, Coach Moore saw that I was gifted. I can catch the ball good. I had leadership skills. He saw that I was creative, but it was my senior year and I still was making mistakes. And they're like, why are you making mistakes with all this talent? So when Coach Moore called me to his office, it was more of like a father really talking to his son. Yeah. And he's like, man, just tell me the truth so I can help you. Yeah. I never told nobody that I couldn't read at this point. And I didn't know my left and right or my east and west. So I memorized the playbook. But when it come down to football, you got audibles. So when a quarterback is under the center and he already got the play and he sees something on the defense, like, oh, I don't like that play, let's go east. I'm making the wrong mistakes because I don't know my left from my right or my east from my west. So when I walked in, when Coach Moore called me to his office, he was like open arms, and I felt so small, and I cried and I bawled my eyes out. When he said, tell me the truth, and I just let go. I said, man, I don't know my left from my right. I can't read. I don't know my east from my west. And he gave me a hug. When he gave me a hug, it's like it released. Oh, I'm about to do everything I can for this man, because he ain't laugh at me like my professors. He ain't laugh at me like my teachers. He ain't making fun of me like my friends and my peers. Oh, I'm about to go to war for him. He accepted me for who I am. Then he gave me an example. Okay, when you hear west, it rhymes with left. He like, what is east? I'm like, right. He allowed me to be myself when it was time to write on a board, to be creative. He gave me different color markers. He allowed me to tell stories, to try to memorize the plays. What? What? I dominated because once Cooper Rush, who played for the Cowboys, who quarterback for the Cowboys, he would say 44 East. I will remember West. It's the opposite. Boom. Crushing my players. And I'm playing with so much confidence now due to the fact that, not that I don't know how to read, that little example boosted my confidence.
I always say every kid needs a champion. Every kid needs somebody who just won't let you go. It could be family, might not be family. Like for you, one of the people is Coach Moore. It makes a big difference, man. But a lot of our kids are hiding in plain sight. So you know, you may see them getting in trouble or doing something different, but really it's all a shell game. It's to hide what's really going on. You know, first of all, before we keep going, let me ask you this. September 13th, Central Michigan plays Michigan. Coach Sharon Moore is head coach of Michigan. Central Michigan is your alma mater. Who you got, man? Come on with it.
Yeah,
Who you
sure.
pulling
Look,
for?
Central Michigan to death, but what Coach Moore did for me, man,
Wow, like that.
man, he broke through me, man. I gave him such a hard time due to the fact that I was trying to hide what the real problem was. And I love Central Michigan. I'm a diehard fan of Central Michigan, but what Coach Moore did to me, man, it's like he saved my life. It's like I love my father, but he did something my father never done before, and he actually gave me a hug and like allowed me to be a little kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
So it's like
something.
I'm rocking with. I don't care if Coach Moore go. I don't care where he go. I'm going.
Right. That's your guy. Yeah. I hear you. Ameer, when you hear that, when you hear Deon talk about, you know, the pain and having to hide his dyslexia, because he said people didn't know. People really didn't know until he found somebody he could open up to. I mean, I'm curious what your reaction is when you hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes for every dyslexic. So I'm very familiar and acquainted with, you know what I'm saying, those ideas, feelings, and opinions that he has regarding this coach, man. It's really important that you're able to release that to somebody. There was a guy named Norman Spoon in my journey who just really believed in me. And I would walk the yards with him, man. And he would tell me things about, man, something special about you, man. You different than these other guys, man. And it's like, man, I needed that. So that's why I go back into the prisons, man, and try to give that to the youth, the adults, you know, because that's all you need is somebody to say, man, you could do it. You know what I mean? It's possible. They need to see a real live person in front of them that have overcome and that's doing well, for them to really embrace that, man, and say, you know what, I can do the same thing. So yeah, I feel what this guy's saying 1,000%.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, Deon, hearing your story and what's going on. Later on down the road, you actually used, was it Orton-Gillingham techniques or methods to learn how to read, right? To learn how to read better. And I'm not sure, you know, just a couple of minutes. Could you talk a little bit about that and what it is and how it helped, you know, how you approached it?
So my tutor name is Miss Sue, and I was 27 years old at the time, Miss Susan. And it was during the pandemic. And she like, I could teach you how to read. And I'm like, nah, the last person I didn't deal with, they lying about it, right? But Miss Sue, like, I could really teach you how to read. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna give you one, I'm gonna get this last time, because I was heard that if you are dyslexic, you would never learn how to read. That's what I was told. So as I'm working with Miss Sue, she's trying to teach me about the ABCs and how many sounds. And I gave her such a hard time through our first month of training. I'm like, this is some bull. But at one point, I felt myself reading and breaking down words. So the next month, I'm like, all right, well, let me just actually give this a chance. So she's giving me like tools, like how to break down VCV and how many sounds in the alphabets and vowel teams. And at one point, I'm struggling and I'm crying because I now have to face this thing like to another adult. And I'm just crying like I'm a grown man and I still can't read. But at one point, I'm like, just use the tools. I read and I read again. We both looked up and she looked at me and I looked at her. She had the old face because she seen it in my eyes that I done did something that I'd never done before. And I heard myself read. She like, read it again. But this time it was fluently. I was flowing through it. I looked at her and my eyes got so big because now I'm about to read to my daughter. I just broke a family curse. My daddy never read to me. My mom, my grandma never read to me. But I'm reading out loud, right? So it was like something went off in my brain. Something went off in my soul. Like, man, I just read. I never read the Bible before. I could only use audio. I started reading and I'm like, oh, what? Then every morning at 3 a.m., I'm up for like 3-4 hours just practicing the Orton-Gillingham, using these tools. Man, I've never felt this a day in my life. This release of joy, happiness, I feel so satisfied. Like I feel finally completed. I feel like I completed something. As you can see, I'm getting so worked up because I remember that moment I said, oh, I'm about to change the future. Man, what?
In your book, you just wrote a book. I believe you just released it not too long ago, The Gift and the Curse. How honest do you get in that book? And I'm gonna ask you the same question, man, because there's always a limit to what people share. How honest are you about the experiences that you had, your reading journey in that book, and who would you say is the audience for? Who would benefit from that?
I am very honest. I am 100% honest about every step, everything that I've done. I wish I could be more honest, but because that it has to be for high school, middle school, elementary kids, and it's such a broad book that anybody that pick up this book will have to look within themselves. Like, man, this guy graduated from college reading at a 4th grade level. He made it all the way to the NFL. He couldn't read the playbook. And all he wanted to do is read to his daughter. Man, I'm telling you, when my wife told me she was pregnant, I went and I confessed this to God. I just started saying, God, I can't read. I'm being so honest about every step that I took.
You would think if it has that big of an impact on people's lives, that this would be something that the powers that be, city folks, school district legislators, that they would make this priority one.
Number one.
But for whatever reason, it seems to be on the back burner. We talk about the school to prison pipeline, but then here you go, Ameer, going off to prisons, coaching people, and most people locked up struggle with reading. So maybe you could speak to, why is this not on the front burner?
And I talk about this in all my presentations. In 1863, I'm gonna give you a brief history. In 1863, you had the Emancipation Proclamation, right? It wasn't inaugurated until 2 years later. That's because America needed the free labor. This country was built upon free labor. Then once that happened, right? Emancipation Proclamation, then we got something that was called the Black Codes, right? Negro was hanging out on the street. Now he's free now, right? He has no place to go, he's free. He has no place to go. If he's drinking too much, they put him in jail. If he looks at a white woman, they put him in jail. So then you had something after we got all these blacks back in a prison system, right? You have something that's called convict leasing. I could lease 1,500 Negroes out to Mr. Jerry down the road to do all his labor for free. So that same process is working today. When you go to a penal system, man, the average penal system, big penal system, have about 25 to 5,000, 4,000 people in it. All of that is free labor. 15% of kitchen appliances are made in penitentiary. You got sofas, women lingerie. You got jeans. You got cups. You got hats. You got police uniforms. All that stuff is made in prison, and they're giving the inmates 20 cents an hour, 15 cents an hour. Man, listen, let me tell you something. That is big business, man. It's big business. So why would I want you to be educated? So this is why the problem has not been addressed, in my opinion, because I've lived it. I left prison 4 years working in the field, doing field work, doing tomatoes, corn, watermelon, picking all this stuff, right? I left the penal system. They paid me 4 cents an hour. I left the penal system. So you think about that free labor, man. They got rich off of me. Somebody got rich. And people are getting rich right now today. That's why they have private prisons. So they need the free labor, man. They need free labor. So if you want to put a self-imposed limitation on yourself, go out here and commit a crime, they damn sure gonna benefit off you.
Somebody gonna make money off of you.
They're gonna make a lot of money off you. And so I wish I had 2,500 people working for me for free.
Man, with pennies on the dollar. Listen, and there's some people, so this is a note to educators, and I'll let you jump in here in a minute, a note to educators who want nothing to do with that. But, you don't have to have a racist heart to produce racist outcomes. That may not be your intentions, but that system has been in place. You say 1863, right before the Civil War. This is an ongoing challenge. And people get caught up in it because they're pushing methods that don't work. Colleges of education are pushing methods that don't work. People won't question things. Then in the culture, we kind of internalize stuff that is not necessarily for us, but it's against us. We internalize some of these things. And before you know it, you have all this unpaid labor that's just right there on the vine for the picking.
Yeah, I want to dovetail into what Deon said real briefly. It's going to be briefly. After I testified before the United States Senate, a guy by the name of Dr. Conway from the NOW program, using Orton-Gillingham, those were his relatives, right? He told me, he said to me, I want to teach you how to read. I said, no, I know how to read. He said, no, you don't know how to read. He said, you just memorize words. And that's all I've been doing for years. Time when I was in prison for 4 years and the time that I've been out. That's all I did. I read all day. That's all I do is read and study my vocabulary words, right? If I never saw a word, particularly a big word, I couldn't spell it or I couldn't pronounce it. I went through this process for 15 months online, 1 hour a day for 15 months. I said it in my book. Had somebody taught me this when I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, 4th grade, I'd have never gone to prison. Never. Illiteracy is the pathway to prison. You have to be literate, man.
You mentioned your book. I mean, you've got a couple of books, but this last one, was it Undiagnosed?
The Ugly Side of Dyslexia. Undiagnosed, the Ugly Side of Dyslexia. And I wrote that specifically, I think, for teachers and educators so they can understand the importance, man, the importance of seeing a child who's struggling with literacy and how to act with a child that's struggling with literacy. You must act.
Can I say this? Before I got your book, I never read it because I wanted to make sure I finished my book. I finished my book. I sent it to my publisher. I read your book and I instantly started crying because I'm like, how does dude know my story? I don't know this dude, bro. I'm like, I was having nightmares due to the fact that, like, bro, like, I went to college, you went to prison. Like, I was easily going to prison, bro. Everything that I've done, it was like I'm being guided to go to school and being pushed to go to school. And I'm reading your book and I'm crying because I'm like, I don't know this man, bro. Ameer, I didn't know you at the time. And I'm reading and I'm like, bro, it's no way that we have such a similar story. The inside of it and the mindset of it is like, oh man, I get it. My mind was in prison just like his mind was in prison. But once you started reading, you started seeing a world. You started feeling like you can see for the first time. When I learned how to read, I created a business. Before I wrote my book, I tried to write a book during the pandemic. Before I met my tutor, I couldn't get nothing off. So much to say, but I felt like it was a lock on me. So it's like, I kept trying and I stopped. I couldn't get it off. I'm like, all right, forget it. I can never do this because I couldn't read. But once I learned how to read, it started flowing like a water going downhill, downstream.
Well, let me just say, there are people all across this country with that same story. That exact same experience. Go to any high school, go to middle school, high school, college even. Man, there's people who are trapped in their own mind because they just can't read, or they read at a very, very basic level, right? Just trying to make it, but they really can't read the letters. And so what I hear you saying is the reality of your situation, that you were not alone. There were other people who had gone through a similar experience. I mean, sure, things are different, but the gist of it was both of you had undiagnosed dyslexia into adulthood. Both of you struggled to read. Both of you, when you learned to read, it began to open up your world and your mind, was a powerful realization. But there are kids all through the country, because it's 20% of the population is dyslexic. 20%. What about those folks who they've never read your book? No teacher didn't buy them the book, or they didn't review it, or they're alone, they're isolated, and they think it's just them. Or they think, I must be dumb. That's
So I wanted to say this real quickly, because you posed some interesting topics, right? So number one, kids in urban settings, we all have the same stories. I met so many dudes in the penitentiary, man. Same story. I just left Virginia, Drumfree, Virginia. I had a speaking engagement there. There I met a young girl named Abigail, and the other name was, I think her name was Brooke. Both are dyslexic. Their parents are very well-to-do, live in a nice home, very nice home. Parents are educated, right? Both one daughter's in the 7th or the 8th grade, she's struggling, right? But the parents are so supportive, right? And now they're pushing her towards business at a very early age. She sells pigs, goats, and chicken eggs. Entrepreneurship already.
Yeah, business, yeah.
So you take a young white kid, who parents is growing up in Iowa. He's going to go towards farming. He's going to go towards operating on that tractor. He's not thinking about selling dope because he doesn't see that. What he sees is farming, counting chickens, hogs, that kind of stuff. And he's going to be real good at it. He's going to be great at it. The black boy who's growing up in the hood without a father, he's looking at breaking in cars, stealing. He's seeing ways to make money. More likely, he's going to take that path. That's the only difference, man. That is the only difference between the two. If I take a black boy and put him in I put him in an environment where he has two parents that are well-educated, they believe in pro-social values, you know what I'm saying? There's a mother always at that house when he comes home, somebody loving on him, pleading with him, hey, you're going to be okay. He's going to make, prime case is a black kid that I mentor now out of New York. He's on my Instagram. He's in New York. His dad is not with the mom, but the mother believes in education. This kid goes to a well-to-do school. The mother got him in this school. The boy struggled with literacy. He plays the cello, right? And he's a great actor, but he struggled with literacy. And he calls me up all the time, Mr. Ameer, I failed my test, and he's crying. But I said, listen, man, you're going to be fine. You're going to be good. You have a great mom. You're going to be okay. I went out to New York, met the mother, met the kid. I mean, this kid is going to win, but he's not part of that low percentile of black boys who are growing up in the hood, whose mother is working 2-3 jobs. This mother is doing very well, and the family believes in education. He's in the Bronx. It's a tough neighborhood, but he goes to school, he comes home, and literacy is top priority.
Yeah, it's top on the table. That just reminds me, dyslexia in general. Most people, when they think of dyslexia, they think white. They just think white.
Absolutely.
When they think of a black child with the same issues, the same all that, they think dumb.
Dumb, bad.
Bad.
He's ignorant, he's illiterate. So that's why I wrote the book, Undiagnosed, The Ugly Side of Dyslexia, because when I was on this journey, man, if you go back and you look at any news station, every time they show dyslexia, there's these white people, right, who are well-to-do white people, and they're paying this money through Orton-Gillingham, and they're paying $75 an hour, $150 an hour to have their kids remediated, and their kids are going to do very well. But there's an ugly side. What about the parents who don't have that type of resources? What happens to their kids? Their kids just fall through the cracks, whether they're white or black. But when you talk about dyslexia, man, you know, that's all you see is white people. You see it. You see it. So the kid who's in New York, his mother was like, Amir, you got to mentor my kid the rest of his life because you're a black man. My kid doesn't want to see white people. He's like, Mama, they're white. They want to see somebody that they can relate to, somebody that went through the same struggles, somebody has the same skin color. It's very important. It's very important. Now, I'm not saying that a white person cannot mentor a black kid. I'm not saying that. But when you dealing with all the nuances of being a black person, it's little small nuances that you deal with that a person can say, man, you know, I understand that, man. I've been through that. I understand that. And so it carries a lot of weight. And so that's one of the reasons, big brother, not to get ahead of your story, that's one of the reasons why I chose acting. Because I was going to, when I got out of prison, I wanted to be a physical therapist, right? They made about $70,000, $80,000. Just wanted to make a living. But in my spirit, the Lord said to me, you cannot impact children being a physical therapist. Entertainers are the gods of this world. You must become one of them and use your platform, right, to encourage children about reading, man. So that's why I'm here.
Well, I commend both of you because a lot of people use their platform after their career is over. After. No shade on athletes who are famous and doing different things or actors, but it's like, listen, I don't want to mess up my brand. And so, you know, I can't be associated with anything related to a learning difference, a disability, something like that, because I gotta sell these shoes. I have to do whatever. And I want people to be able to relate and identify with me and my brand. So later for that, you know, I'm gonna do it once I make my money. I get it. And here you all are doing it in the middle
But
because
there's consequences to that, big brother. You know, I kid you not. If I'm lying, I ask that God take the breath out of my life and my mother's life right now. My brother and I was ruminating on that today. And he said something to me. He said, Amir, he said, this last role that you played on this television show, man, he said, man, that should have brought you into the stratosphere. I've worked with great actors and actresses, right? Angela Bassett, Kathy Bates. I worked with them all. Forrest Whitaker. I've worked with them all. But this last role that I had for Tyler Perry, I played addict, and I played very, very well. But he said something. He said, Amir, they won't pick you to put you out there in the stratosphere because you're about helping your people. They want these Negroes who are going to talk about smoking weed, hitting hoes, excuse my vulgarity, just doing dumb, low vibration stuff. That's what they want. That's who they're putting in front of our children.
Man.
Those type of people, man.
Yeah.
So
All
it comes
day,
with a
every day.
cost because you restrict yourself, because what I'm going to do is you can't get me to sell liquor. You can't get me on there talking about how many bras I got, how many women I have, how many cars I have. That is nonsense. But that's what they propagate through our people. They'll blow you up. They'll give you millions of dollars. Just act a fool.
Yeah.
You go out there and you act a jackass because you're gonna make a lot of money doing it. Don't you go to talk about helping nobody.
I gave this presentation in Buffalo, New York. Packed audience with, you know, a big conference. And I talked about reading and kids and the choices that they make and how they had to take control of their lives and it was up to them to do certain things, right? And a person came up to me afterward, a young white lady, and she pulled me to the side and said, I just want a quick word with you. She was real passionate, real worked up, and she said, you know, I love your speech. I appreciate it. I was one of the ones that stood up and was clapping, but I just disagree with you. You made it sound like the kids have control, and a lot of our kids don't have control. A lot of our kids, the forces in life are so wild that they're not in control. So I just want to. It's a dangerous message to tell young people that they have control over their lives completely and the outcomes, when reality is society is dictating to them what's going to happen to them. And I looked at her and I said, thank you for sharing that with me, right? And I just walked off. And I'd love to get your response to that, because my thinking was, whether you're right or wrong, the kids that we're working with, the kids at the bottom of the well, they can't really afford to have that mindset. That's a luxury mindset. And I'm sure she came from a very loving, compassionate place, feeling sorry for kids or wanting them to, empathize with their situation and all of that. But how would you respond to that mindset? Because that mindset is pervasive in society today.
I'll try to answer that, right? In my teaching, we talk about, I tell the most powerful thing that you have is the power to choose, right? No one can take that from you, the power of choice. However, it's like building a house. If the foundation of that house is not strong, based upon your pro-social values, learning is a value, respect is a value, education is a value, vision is a value. If you're not building on top of that, you don't have any framework, you're void, you're weak. It's not going to happen. And you're right, the children that we're dealing with, they don't have the bandwidth to really understand that. They don't have the bandwidth to understand that. So with fatalism, they accept the hardship that besets them because they don't understand. They can't grasp that I have a will. I can do this because the foundation is not strong.
I agree.
So you're absolutely right. I think you're right. I think, but you can evolve into that. But you can't ask a kid in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade to think that way. They cannot understand it. You can plant that seed. Hopefully it germinates, right? But it's very difficult, particularly if a kid is dyslexic. He or she is behind the 8 ball. Anyway, they're behind the 8 ball. So it's going to be very difficult. You need a strong support system.
Can I just add a little bit piece to that? Because
Go ahead.
y'all, I mean, it's bullseye on the target. I'm only gonna speak for me. I had such a bad attitude and aggressive. Like no matter where I went, I was always respected, but I always had this anger that was out of control. And everything you did, I'll go to my wife family house and they'd be playing board games. I'm already upset because they want to play the board games. I don't want to play the board games because I can't read. I go out to eat with them. I can't get what they get because I can't read the menu. So this anger is always locking me and always ready to explode. And it is exploding, right? Once I learned how to read, I started reading more books on how to control that anger and how to meditate and how to listen and how to feel good and how to it would never go anywhere, but how to cope with it because I done been through so much trauma. But it was the reading that caused me to feel the words and understand what it actually meant and being able to resonate. So I understand with these kids that's out of control. They are out of control with so much anger and so much in them that they won't be able to control themselves until they unlock that true gift of theirs, that true understanding of being able to listen, meditate, feel good, and actually get the body to relax. Because the mind say one thing and the body do another thing. It ain't lining up. But once I learned how to read, I said, oh, I see that anger creep up. I'm aware of all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, what about, ideally, kids learning to read early. You're talking about kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, early, right? If y'all could go back in your minds to the teachers you had back then in school, back in the day, why didn't it happen? Because parents, when we send our kids to school, all right, we're thinking, keep them safe, teach them how to read. That's off top. Everything else is extra, but we expecting that, right? But it didn't happen for y'all the way it needed to happen to you. And I'm curious why not. Because teachers need to hear this. They need to understand what they're doing and not doing and what's working and not working. What were they doing? Why didn't it work? Why weren't you guys reading coming out the gate like that when you were younger?
I think like dealing with dyslexia and the way that a typical kid learns is different from myself. So I think I just fell through the cracks because my processing skills were way behind, right? I needed that one-on-one. I needed it. And so I think for me, I say like my brothers and sisters, we grew up in the same projects together. walked out of those same nasty hallways, but they ran on to school because they read fluently. I mean, they got it, boy, and boy, they love school. My sisters and brothers love school. They was thinking about college. Both of them went to college. You know, they were just, man, they were going, they were thriving. And so I think teachers were not aware, perhaps, and maybe they had a burden. Maybe they didn't. You know, I don't want to put all the weight on the teachers. I don't know. They just looked. They looked over me, man, for years. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11. I mean, I don't know how I got through all those grades, man. I really don't. But I got through. So teachers just, I guess they didn't just care. I don't know if they didn't care. But it was one teacher, right? It was one teacher. She was. I went to a white school, and she was my ninth grade English teacher. And she realized that I couldn't read, and she would pull me out of class, and on the side she would help me. But I was too far gone by then. It's like, you know, being in the 9th, 10th grade, it's like it's too late for me. It's not going to happen. You're too embarrassed, too much shame. You know, you don't care at this point. So that's why you got to get it early on. I think it's imperative that we get kids 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, right, early on, and make that correction. Because if you wait too long, I think if a kid is reading poorly in the 2nd grade, he has a 74% chance to read poorly in the 9th grade. So it's too long. It's too long. Hopelessness sets in, and you're ruined by then.
At that young age, your sense of self is developing in like 2nd and 3rd grade. Your picture of who you are and who you can become. And
Yes.
so you're already, and it doesn't matter what color you are or how much money you have, that can last a long time with a kid. So
Absolutely.
getting them early is critical.
But the money, see what money does, right?
That's true.
Money could fix the problem.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right?
Yeah,
Money could fix the problem.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you,
the Bible said money answers all things. So in having those resources, I look at myself and I say, oh my God, like I said, when I got the remediation for that year, it was 15 months, I was online. Had someone took me in the 4th grade and set me down one-on-one and did that for me for an hour, I'd have never gone to prison. I would have never. I was athletic. I was strong. I could jump. That was my way out. To college, it was going to get me to college. My athleticism was going to get me to college. I had a niece and a nephew. One played for Texas A&M, A student, because my brother believed in education. Had a niece went to UCLA, B student, because my brother believed in education. But he used their athleticism to get them into college for free because they were very talented and gifted. One was a runner, one played basketball. So they didn't have to pay for college. But they got their degrees because they were smart and they were athletic. So he got a free, listen, man, we dominate sports. So that's the way I'll tell anybody, if you want to go to college for free, you don't have the money, take a black kid and put him in sports. He's going to college. Because we're athletic, we can jump, we're just talented people. So
culture.
That can get you into college. If you're educated, now you can take advantage of a free education because they're gonna give you a free ride.
I agree with you, but I'm also on Kareem point. I always apologize to myself, to that little boy inside me, right? I'm always, because I know that little boy inside me is very emotional because he did everything they way, you know what I mean? The teacher's way, my grandma way, ask for help. And I was going through some embarrassing times, some struggling times, and some moments that I will never get back, and moments that stuck in my mind, right? So I'm always apologizing to that little boy inside me, telling the teacher, saying they didn't know. They didn't know. They just wasn't aware. And I'll go back and I'm doing speaking engagement with my coaches and them, and they like, we didn't know. You hit it so well. To this day, I go back and they like, man, this boy didn't graduate and he couldn't read. Not just in high school. I go back to the colleges, and my college coaches said, we didn't know. We never knew. We never spotted it. We never caught it because we wasn't aware. And now that I speak about it, so many of the players that's like, oh, I think I'm dyslexic too. But that little boy inside me had to forgive because he's an angry one. He's angry about every step every level, everything. My mom dead, my grandma dead, and I couldn't get them out that place, right? And I could have used that NFL money to get them to a place that they always dreamed of. But I kept coming up short, asking for help. I did. I did it their way. I asked, and I never had to get the answer until I went to God. It was God who told me I was dyslexic. It was God who helped me read. I went to God. I went to every human being on this earth about this problem, and it still didn't get fixed. Man, I forgive myself, man.
So
It's
here
that-
it is.
that's easy.
So here it is, the teachers who, it's their job to teach, right? They get the materials from the school, and then they teach the kids how to read. Man, a lot of teachers just don't know what to do.
They don't.
They honestly don't know what to do with a kid who's dyslexic or a kid who's struggling to read, other than talk louder. That's what they think is working. I'm going to talk slower to you, like that's that can't be it. And then Brett, you might could talk about this a little bit. What do teachers need? What do they need to know? What kind of training or support do they need to get? What resources can they have? Where should a teacher go if he or she wants to do the right thing and help kids who are struggling? They don't know how to read. They may or may not be dyslexic, but they're not reading anywhere near what they need to be. What advice would you have for teachers?
In my book, I talked about the science behind reading. I never knew that it was tools to be able to break words down. As I was in high school, I kept hearing, as you get older, you'll learn how to read. As you continue to grow, you'll just pick it up. Whew. I'm 19, 20, 21 in college. And I'm still looking, this professor look at me in my face like, wow, you don't know how to read yet?
Yeah.
Man, that hurt my soul. And then it's like, in my book, I talk about there's, we just passed the bill in Michigan about the science behind reading, how every teacher need to be trained to catch dyslexia or struggling readers. So it is mandated by 2027 that all teachers have the training of the Orton-Gillingham or the science behind reading. So in my book, it talks about steps by step of how I was able to learn, how I was able to grow beyond that fear. And also it's a two-way flow, right? It takes me and also takes the teacher. Hey, this is where I'm at learning. I need extra help. If the teacher do not know, there is a specialist. There is people that have the right training to be able to train in the Orton-Gillingham or the science behind reading.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's I think the system is broken. We can fix it. It's an easy fix. All of our teachers now who are coming out of universities should be aware of dyslexia and how to teach a kid. That should just be part of the new curriculum just coming out of college. I mean, it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix. It's an easy fix, man. And so, the thing is, do they want that? That's the question. Do they really want that? Because it's an easy fix. It's not complicated.
Where I think both of your books will really come in handy. When I talk to people, I have two different arguments. One is, you tell them how much money it costs to incarcerate someone or how much money it costs to pay for all these expenses that having dyslexia costs to a state. But what your books do is yours make those teachers who maybe are offered the science of reading but are not really sure that it makes sense or not really sure that they want to take the time to learn the science of reading. I think your books really speak to that issue and tell them their why. I think that's how these books and your personal vulnerability in your books.
Brett, can I just jump on that? I would say, so I agree with you, teachers could benefit from both your books and principals and parents, et cetera. But where I think it really needs to be, these colleges of education.
Oh, yes.
These universities who prepare teachers to teach. They teach them how to do it. So before you learn the wrong way, really understand what kids are going through. We're talking about a fifth of kids, 20%. And I have not yet met an educator who says, no, I'm good, I don't need to know that. They want to know. Why should they have to spend more money on top of the money they already spent in college? Why not just teach it to them in college so they'll know what it is, what dyslexia is, and what they need to do to serve kids consistently to get them how to read. So I think, you all have talked about, principals and teachers and parents and kids and all that. Sure, high school, middle school, fine. I actually think, having read the books, that it's the colleges of education. That should be part of the syllabus. That should be part of the catalog and what you have to do.
Absolutely. I concur.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the root of the problem.
We always try to fix the problem after the fact. But if teachers knew going in, hey, this is a real thing, and understand this is what can happen to you, and here's the ugly side of it. I think then we go into the classroom already having a mindset to learn and to teach and to serve all kids the way they need to be served.
And
if they
I agree
don't
on the
do
college
it-
level as well, because when I asked for help, I went to the disability office. I went there and I'm searching and to not get the help it's very frustrating, because I got little tools in football to help me with the rhyming, and I'm playing more confidence. Now it's like, all right, I'm in this business world now, and I still don't know how to read. That sucks, man.
So I'm a young person. Let's say I'm 14. What's that? 9th grade, 8th grade, something like that. I'm in 8th and 9th grade. I got some size on me, so I may be able to play sports or what have you. And I really can't read. Male or female, I can't really read. Or I read at a very basic level. And there comes a point where you either try to evade or you go get help. And that point comes, or you continue to try to get help. That point comes differently for different people. But there's some kids who, they put the hood on their head, or, jacket over their head, or there's different ways to hide, as my daughter told me. When that kid is at the moment of decision and they're thinking about whether or not to continue to seek help, when it hasn't been forthcoming, they've tried before, nobody knows what to do. But they have to decide, do I drop out? Do I keep going? Do I keep looking for help? Do I keep embarrassing myself in class? What would you say to a young person in that situation who's kind of at the moment of decision? What would you say to a young person who has the intentions of doing right? They don't want to go down the wrong path, but at the same time, you get tired after a while. Would you have any words for a young person like that?
Yeah, the thing is that's why I'm in this work, man. That's why I do what I do, because I think my life story and the horror that's intertwined in my story can prevent a kid from relinquishing their hope. Because once you relinquish your hope, you're in trouble. Once you do that, you're in trouble. So that's why I'm trying to continue to push and push and push, so I can get to that kid in Philly, so I can get to that kid in Baltimore and say, man, listen, man, God's gonna have a plan for your life, man. I don't care if you can't read. That's nothing. Steve Jobs struggled with literacy.
Right.
Tom Cruise struggled with literacy. Whoopi Goldberg struggled with literacy. Jennifer Aniston struggled with literacy. This football player struggled with literacy. That basketball player struggled with literacy. I struggled with it. And guess what? I still made it. Don't give up. Whatever you do, man, whatever you do, stick in there and tell people that you have dyslexia. Tell people you struggle with literacy. Get rid of the shame. See, once you get rid of the shame of it and you let people know, you free yourself. But long as you're holding on to that, it's a secret, it incarcerates you. But once you speak about it, you free yourself. I'm free. Hey, man, I struggle with literacy, man. I'm dyslexic. I'm not stupid. I'm not that. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. You're very intelligent, but you just can't read. That's fine. Continue. Even if you have to learn to read like I did by writing thousands of words down. Do it. Fight, because on the other side of that fighting, see, once you stop fighting, on the other side of that, you're in pure darkness, man. You're in darkness, and you don't want to be there. That's all we could really tell a kid. You know what I mean? It's all we could really do. I can't make a kid not want to give up. You sit there, man, and you try your best to translate your story into their lives and try to get them to take off the lenses that they're wearing and see through your lens. That's all you could do.
Deon, what would you say to that?
I would say, man, to that young child or that young kid, is if you want to build a better future, if you want to be able to create more, if you want to add more value to you, you have to learn how to read, no matter how hard it gets. Once you get over that hill or once you climb that ladder, you will see better days. You will feel better days. You will be able to do something that your mind never imagined due to the fact that it's now being fed the right food, right? The right ingredients to be able to think beyond what the now is. I wasn't able to do that in college, but once I learned how to read, now I got my own business. I do my own emails. I write my own statuses. Man, I'm having fun being a businessman due to the fact that when I go into these meetings, I know how to understand, I know how to read, and I know how to process the information. You got, as a young kid, the brain need this stuff so you to be able to change the future.
I'm sure a lot of teachers will see this. And, thank you all you both for sharing the resources. You both have books out. Appreciate it. Teachers can go get that. That's fine. But you just said something for kids that I think is also just as important for educators, which is don't give up. Don't give up. So you have kids at all different ages and different conditions in life. They come to you from all different, family backgrounds and all the rest. But just not to give up. It might mean taking that class. It might mean getting some extra help on the side for yourself and for the child, so you can learn how to teach them and they can learn how to read. But I'm begging you, please don't give up. Please. Because there's very little that stands between a child and some of the outcomes that you all talked about. Is very few people willing to stand in the breach. I know that's a lot to put on educators. I know that's a lot. But please do the work that it takes to get the skills that are needed to support young people on their journey. I just need to say that because just as soon as kids might give up, teachers get tired too, man. They get tired. They don't know what to do. So I just want to make sure that's named. Brett, did you have anything you wanted to say as we close out?
I just appreciate the grit that both of you had. One of the things in both of your stories was that, just as Kareem said, you didn't give up, and you kept fighting, and you kept working, and you kept. It's resilience and it's grit, and a common part of your stories, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that you had supportive grandmas. Like, there were adults who really did adore you and were always kind of in your corner, even if they didn't know you had dyslexia. But I felt like you pulled on that sometimes to give you strength.
Yeah, I would say that my grandmother was very instrumental, man, in my life. Again, she had a third grade education. But as I said earlier, she said that the only way the Negro would get out of poverty was through education. She believed in two things: education and God. She believed in that you had to have a relationship with God and be educated. It saddens me that my grandmother cannot be here today to see the accomplishments and all the wonderful things that I've done, the things that I'm doing with kids in prisons, adults, etc. in my acting career. It kind of bothers me, but hey, it is what it is. But she was the one. She was the one that if it had not been for her, I think I'd be dead.
I'm gonna say this: go grab these books because it's two similar books, and both of these guys, both of us, me and Ameer, struggle to read, but at the end of the day, we both got a book out, right? We did something that was kind of impossible in the dyslexic world. Go get these books so you can see two different perspectives, and one on the ugly side and one calling a curse and a gift. So I truly believe that when you read both of these books, man, you're going to be like, all right, it's time to get down and work.
But here's a question for you. Here's a question for you. So let's say I'm a 17-year-old high school kid. I can't read. I'm dyslexic. I can't read the book. Is it like an audio or something that, you know what I'm saying? Like, That's the irony of it is if I'm dyslexic, I might not can read the book that's talking about dyslexia.
Well, for as my book, you can have it translated into audio. You can do
Okay,
that,
cool.
right?
Yeah.
A
Okay.
lot of people have done that, and so there's new technology now where you can get the book, and the book it reads for you, right? This new technology right now, man, it'll read for you. That's all. You put your headphones on and go to the page, and it just says everything. It won't be my voice, unfortunately. It won't be my voice, but there's a voice, so people can understand through that way.
And I will be having an audio version of the book coming soon. It's some process to it, but it's a big accomplishment. So you will be able to have an audio version, and you'll be able to have a hard copy.
Well, I appreciate you both.
Big brother, I want to say this before we go.
Go ahead.
Regarding teachers, because you said something that teachers get tired. I truly do not believe that teachers who have been called to teach get tired. No. See, because when God gifts you, he gives you the grace to do anything. And so for teachers who are passionate about teaching, they love teaching. Yes, do they need a break? Absolutely, they need a break. But they're passionate about their children. And they love their seed sowers. A good teacher is a seed sower. Their teachers, man, there was a teacher that name is Mr. Liban and Mr. Douglas, two teachers of mine, right? One was a science teacher and the other one was a history teacher. I remember these men. These men told all their students how great they were. They were seed sowers. They gave us our history. They told us that we were special. That's what great teachers do. And even if you cannot read, a great teacher still will tell you, you're going to be fine. I guarantee you. You hang in there. You find something you're passionate about. That's what great teachers do. But when you don't care, you won't say anything. You just write that kid off. That teacher needs to be out of the school system. That teacher needs pro-social values.
Ameer, you talking about pro-social values for incarcerated folks, but there's also pro-social values that educators need to internalize so that they can reach the kids. Man.
So let me give you an example.
Ameer, you know what you're doing. Why are you getting
Go
this
ahead,
ready?
man. Go ahead.
Let me give you an example. Let's say hypothetically, there's internal locus of control and external locus of control. So I will start off by asking the teacher, how do you feel today? At the very first day of school or the second or the fourth day of school. If that teacher tells me, well, I'm feeling like, how you feel between 1 to 10? And that teacher tells me a 5. I would say, why are you feeling like a 5? Is that external or internal locus of control? Because external is beyond your control, but internally, you have control of that. So let's say if a teacher, she's going through a bad divorce, or she's going through she can't find a husband, or vice versa with a man. That teacher has external problems. That teacher cannot be at a 10. You must be at a 10 every day, and it's possible because you choose to be at a 10. That's a choice. Now, here's how it's possible. If I told that teacher who's feeling like a 5, and I asked that teacher, I said, what's your favorite song? They might say, I don't know, whatever song. And I say, how does that song make you feel when you hear it? Oh, it makes me feel good. That's an external factor that has impacted your internal locus of control. No external factor should impact your internal locus of control. However, if you don't have your values together, your emotions in line and in check, that's when your external factors control your internal. Now, I'm gonna break it all the way down to another level. Let's say if you have these pro-social values of love, teaching, patience, kindness, humility, all these pro-social values, and you are a disciple of those values, meaning that you do not deviate. If a teacher does not have that, a condition, we cannot allow a condition to change your value. So let's say you have a kid that's struggling with literacy, and that kid is angry every day. That kid is frustrated every day. That teacher who has these pro-social values and are a disciple of those values cannot allow that kid to disrupt them, or for that kid to give them the authority for them to write them off. If that teacher does do that, that teacher is in distortion. And the challenge is, how do you get back up to your values? Because you can fall into distortion. They must understand that a condition should never change their values. I would never write a kid off. I would never tell a kid, I don't care how bad that kid is, man, you going to the penitentiary or you'll never be nothing. I would never do that.
But that
I
comes
would never
with
do that.
but that comes with first being clear about what your values are.
That's
You
being
can't.
clear as a teacher.
That's right.
A teacher
That's
must,
right.
there must be a standard in the school system that all teachers must operate out of these values.
You
It's a
can't
standard.
outsource it. You can't outsource it to your political affiliation,
No.
to your fraternity or sorority, to
No.
your race.
No.
No. You, what are your values?
What are your values as a teacher? And if you don't have these values, you damn sure shouldn't be in front of my child. I don't want you in front of my child. Because you're not clear on what you're there for. And if you're there just for a paycheck, you need to be out.
Or whatever the reason is. Maybe you want to get involved in some organization. Maybe you want, whatever it is, if it's not about the kids. If that's not at the center of it,
If that's not your priority,
it's not gonna work.
listen, I know you got problems at home, but for these 8 hours, I need you to be able to set that aside and execute the mission of being an educator. Listen, God has placed you in a unique position to be over children, babies. So you're the one that takes the weeds out of the garden that keeps the weeds from choking the child.
I agree with you 100%.
That's your
But I
child.
always say it is a two-way flow, though. You know what I mean? Because once you give these kids a reason and having fun to learn, then that kid is not giving that headache, and that teacher is also enjoying how to teach and how to have fun. So it is a two-way flow because at some point, teachers got to deal with 30-something kids, right? And
Yeah.
if 30-some of them kids are like me, bro, like as us, when we ain't really having fun. We frustrated. We angry. So we about to get on this teacher nerve every single day, which is gonna give this teacher a headache. I'm not giving no excuses for the teacher, but when you're having fun, when I as an adult and I'm having fun learning how to read with my tutor, it became competitive. I wanted to show up every single day. I started locking in and I started learning. She enjoyed teaching me because she saw the happy part of me of learning.
Colleges of education are so important because many of these teachers do not know anything about dyslexia and they think you're just fidgeting and you're not paying attention. And once they know that they have the ability and they have the skills to teach you how to read, and there is that flow back and forth, and you feel good and they feel good, that is that magic rhythm. But they need to know about dyslexia and how to teach every child to read.
and they have to make up their mind. So I would disagree with you on this one. I understand it's a two-way street at some point. I hear you. And, man, I'm either a teacher or I'm not.
Absolutely.
I'm either a teacher or I'm not. I know that the job is not a surprise. It's not a surprise that the kids aren't reading and sometimes they act wild or the resources are low. Like what the pay is going in. I'm not saying that teachers don't have a challenge. I mean, I was a teacher for a long time. I get it, but you have a choice. If you choose to be in the role, then you got to stand on it. If you choose, because you're in the vanguard position. You're the difference between them and the gates of hell. If you're going to be in that position, man, listen, if you got to go to counseling, go to counseling. If you have to do something else to get yourself together mentally, physically, spiritually, do that. But when you show up at 8:30 or 8:15, man, you got to be present. You got to be 10 toes down, and you have to be prepared. And yes, that goes to the colleges of education, that goes into the principal, that goes to the superintendent, the school board, and everybody else. But you chose to be there, then you got to be there.
You got to be there.
Yeah.
Amen. I
The
agree.
teachers, yeah. My dad said something, and this is kind of off, right? But this is how one must be a disciple of their values, right? So when a teacher loves, it's nothing that a kid can do change that teacher's mind about love, because that's what I love. That's who I am. That's when you're clear on your values. It says that Jesus and his disciples was walking through the town of Galilee, right? And the Pharisees and the Sadducees begin to say all kind of nasty things about Jesus. You're a false prophet. You're Beelzebub, the devil. You're this and you're that. And so the disciples got angry and wanted to fight the ones that was talking about Jesus. So they came and told him. They say, Yeshua, his name is Yeshua, but Jesus, they're saying all kind of negative things about you. What do you got to say about this? He said, tell them that I love them. because a vessel can only pour out what's in it.
Amen.
A vessel can only pour out what's in it. If love is in you, that's always going to come out you as a teacher. If peace and patience is in you, that's going to come out you with a kid. I don't care how
At
bad
some point,
the kid is.
are we talking about the teachers or the system? Because
No,
come
I'm
on,
talking
now-
about. We're talking about the teachers of
Teacher.
right now, right? I'm talking
Yeah.
about
Teacher.
teachers
I
who are
agree.
dealing with, how clear teachers have to be. I mean, these type of practices needs to be taught, man, because just because you get an educator, that doesn't make you a great teacher.
I
right?
agree, though. I agree with you and Kareem on both everything that y'all saying. But you put this teacher in a room where no full
Support.
training. How is that the teacher's fault?
Well,
If that makes sense, that's a systematic. That's a broken system. I love all my teachers, and I'm also angry with them because I agree with y'all. Once you put your heart into this, you got to put your soul into it. You got to do it. You got to show up every single day. But what if I'm showing up every single day teaching the paper that I got, but these kids still ain't learning? Well, now we got to think deeper
listen,
because you only got so much power.
Well, big brother, so the deal is this here. What I'm saying is this. If a teacher is compassionate about teaching and loving, just do your job. The rest is out of your control. The rest is really out of your control, particularly if a kid is dyslexic, right? It's out of your control. You don't have the wherewithal, you don't have the bandwidth, the education level to teach this child. So what you have to do is talk to that kid parent or talk to the school board official, somebody. But what I'm saying is that the teacher must stay on his or her square when it talks about loving the child, being kind with the child, and being patient with the child. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're right, because you do have them teachers that just nasty and angry, and they teach a certain way, and if that kid don't learn that certain type of way, then now they're disrespectful to the student. So okay, that went off my head.
That's what I'm talking about.
You absolutely right about that.
Man. We got to be really, really clear on teachers. I think that needs to come down the pipeline. Okay, here's what we do here at this school. We operate out of a spirit of peace, patience, love, forgiveness, faith, hope. These are our values as teachers. And that needs to be implemented throughout the school system. And this is how teachers operate. No matter what kind of child you get, you're going to show love and kindness, and you're going to have to show that kid hope. You know what I'm saying? Aspiration, those type of things. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
I don't want to be late for that, though.
Well, listen, I appreciate you both, man. This is something, so it's not just about, it is about dyslexia, but it's also about how we as adults show up for young people.
Yes.
It's about how systems show up, the colleges of education, how they choose to show up for young people by preparing their teachers right. And it's also about how, frankly, we as Black men make decisions about how we move, career-wise, and do we put our goals and what is the difference between our work and our job? Being very clear that, hey, I got a job, I got to make sure but my work as a responsible member of the community is to make sure that the next generation coming behind me has a way made for them. So, man, I appreciate you both.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your journeys and your willingness to be honest and open about it and not just mincing words and hiding behind, the screen or the field, but to actually be honest and let people see what's really going on. I hope people do end up getting the book, and especially for young people, so they have something that they can look at as a reference point to know that, hey, somebody else did it, I can do it too. But just in general, at the national level with the First Step Act, and Deon at the Michigan State House with the legislation that was passed, thank you for the work you're doing in the field to support young people along their journey. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Literacy Now is a podcast designed specifically for parents in our effort to ensure every child learns to read. Parents deserve a seat at the table, and we bring their voices to the fore. We invite you to join the Parents for Reading Justice community on all of our socials, and make sure to visit our website to watch our documentary and to take our masterclass. All of our content is free of charge because every child deserves to learn to read. This episode was brought to you by parentsforreadingjustice.org, produced by Brett Tingley and Keita Mascaro.